and to start the proceedings of this virtual session. Over to you, Mr. Anil.
Yeah, thank you very much, and all the points. I am very much thankful to the JDY for giving me be part of the conference. Well, if I talk about myself now, if I've done a bit and a tech and
Anil, Mr. Anil, I think your voice is breaking a little bit.
Sir, let's join it. Please, 2 minutes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Anil. So, a warm welcome to all the participants who have joined in. Before we start with the technical sessions, I would like to point out a couple of indicators or a couple of points for all of you so that we can follow the same protocol for all the participants who are present. Okay, so for all the participants who are presenting in this conference, okay, your total time allocation is 15 minutes, wherein you will be allowed to present for 10 minutes and 5 minutes for any question and answer. Okay. Participants who want to ask questions may please type your questions for that particular presenter in the virtual chat box, and either myself or Mr. Anil Kumar, who is the other co-chair of this session, will ask the questions at the end of the presentations. Okay. Also, since this presentation is in virtual mode, I would request all the participants except the presenter to please switch off their camera and audio during the presentation taking place. Okay. Also, I believe that you have already received the session layout. Okay, so I think we are supposed to have, I think, about 4 lectures before the lunchtime period. Okay, because I think it was supposed to start from about 12 o'clock, so we're running about a little bit, 15 minutes left. So what we will do is we will try to complete, and maybe instead of 4, maybe we will consider complete 3 presentations before lunch. Okay, and then 1 extended presentation that can be taken up starting from the next hour at 2 o'clock, because 1 to 2 is a scheduled time for lunch. Okay. Within your time permissible limits of 10 minutes, after 8 minutes, there will be a buzzer alarm. Okay, so that will be an indication for you that that is probably you have 2 minutes left to wrap up your presentation. Okay, so these are some of the important instructions that I wanted to highlight to all the participants for this virtual session. Okay, and also, since we have 2 co-chairs for this particular session, so each of the co-chair will be handling one of the participants. Okay, so for example, Mr. Anil will start with the first presentations that is scheduled. Okay, and then I will be taking up the second one, then Mr. Anil will be the third one. So we will be alternatively taking up the presentation schedules for this. Okay, and also the presentation schedules have already been given to you, so we will be trying to stick to that particular format as given. Okay, so with this brief instructions and guidelines, and all the best of luck to all the participants. Okay, I would now like to declare this virtual session open. And with this, now I would like Mr. Anil to please invite the first speaker for this particular session. Mr. Anil, if you could please invite the first speaker and start with the protocols of the presentation. Over to you, Mr. Anil.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Well, timing as made by Dr. Ganguly, even total 10 for present and followed by minutes for questions. I will budget 2 minutes of presentation. So please be of that. So after that, we'll get 2 more minutes to wrap it, and I to be and to be this presentation. In today's session, just, okay, in the previous session, we have 3 presentations because we have some time, 70 minutes. So first of all, I move Anusha to present there is critical overview of reinforcing strength using G-cell for cell foundation. The paper is this paper continued by Anusha, and Devin.
Good afternoon, everyone. So can I start my presentation now?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you. Hello. So is it visible?
Yes. It is.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to present a paper on the critical overview of reinforcing sand using GeoCell for shallow foundation. And my co-authors are Pragya Sinha, Sanjeev Kumar, and Devinder Singh. And I'm an MTech student from B.R. Ambedkar NITJA. So we'll go to the presentation. So basically geocells, these are three-dimensional honeycomb structures that will provide a lateral confinement when the load is applied, and it will improve the load bearing capacity and reduce the settlement to a permissible limit. Now the geocells are basically geosynthetics formed from planar geosynthetics like geotextiles, geogrids, and these geosynthetics were like explained in detail by Sanjay Kumar Shukla, who was a keynote speaker. And so I believe everyone is familiar with this geosynthetics. Now, this geosynthetics the materials used for this the geosynthetics are high density polyethylene and nanopolymer alloy, and these geocells find their application in a lot of areas like reinforcing foundation, slope stability, pavements, etc. Now, this is a picture of a geocell. The working mechanism of a geocell is like when the load is applied, it will give a, a frictional resistance between the geocell and the geocell wall and the soil. Like it is confined, and so it will have a frictional resistance in between in the interface so that it can carry more load. And the geocell act as a mattress by restricting the movement of the soil beneath the geocell upwards to the loading area and reduces the heave. Now there are few parameters by which we can analyze like what is the improvement factors that are improvements that is made by putting the geocells by applying the geocells. And so some of the parameters are bearing capacity ratio, improvement factor, and percentage reduction settlement. Basically, what we want is we need by reinforcing, basically we need more load carrying capacity, and we need to reduce the settlement. So these are the main two factors which we are looking for by adding, reinforcing soil with anything. So bearing capacity ratio is the ratio of ultimate bearing capacity of the reinforced soil to the unreinforced. The improvement factor ratio is like the at a particular settlement, what is the ratio of bearing capacity of the reinforced to the unreinforced. The percentage reduction is as a percentage only, like the settlement, how much settlement can be like reduced. Now the character, what all geocels we need, like how do we select a geocell and how do we place the geocell in to get optimum results. So various researchers have done the study extensively to find a range, as in we cannot say this is the optimum value, because the soil, the type of geocell used, the type of footing used, the function of which it is to be, like what is the function of the geocells in this thing. So everything has a role to play, and so we cannot say okay, this is the value we should do it. But we can say for sure that we can find a range in which this should be placed. Now there's some of this are like the pattern in which the geocells have to be arranged, that is chevron. This gives the best values, but we can use the other patterns as well. And the depth of the placement, so depth of the placement is actually the depth below which below the foundation which the geocell when placed gives optimum results. And height of the cell, aspect ratio of the cell, stiffness modulus of the cell. Now what happens with the stiffness modulus is that if we consider a material which has low stiffness, what happens is that it will confine under it will deform under the applied load. So the function of the geocell will not be met. But if we use a geocell with very high stiffness, what happens is that there will be strain mobilization in the cell, and it can break due to the higher loads. So we cannot use a lower stiffness material, and we cannot use also the high stiffness material. So we have to see, okay, this should be the range of the stiffness. And the width of the reinforcements also plays an important role. The pocket size of the the geocell, that is the area of the pocket. So that's also the optimum values are also like given. Oh, sorry, what happened? Okay. Now the characteristics of the soil, like now that was the characteristics of the geocell. Now the soil what we use to infill the material, infill the geocell, also have a role to play in the reinforcing effect. So the ratio of the cell size and the mean diameter of the soil is to be 15. And these are all results from different authors, because not all the factors can be found from one paper, like one research, one work. So it is like it's basically a review paper, no? So the ratio of cell size and the maximum diameter of the soil should be 7 to 11. The ratio of plate size to the mean diameter of the soil should be 20. And the internal friction, like angle of innervation, also should be like in the range of 30 to 40 to give the maximum results. Now the preferred infill soil is sand, as we can have a membrane effect. That is, the soil particles will have a come closer and give a will have a very confined thing, and when the load is applied from out above, we can give give one an upward force to counterbalance that load. but it was found in various other studies, like it need not be very high quality sand that we should be used. We can also use the locally dredged sand, and further studies were done in using the slags, cement slag, all these things, and so it was also found that it didn't compromise the function very much. So we can use the locally enriched materials also. Now that is a very good point, as if we had to use just like a particular type of sand, it couldn't be a proper solution, a proper sustainable solution for the problem. Now we have seen that okay, this is okay, we need not have the a particular type of sand. We can use the locally enriched sand also. Now see, there is this is a new advancement in the use of geocell, as in see, there is also always a chance of the infill material to seep down, and it can, the function won't be met. And so the additional planar reinforcement improves the load bearing capacity. The benefits are like the downward movement of the infill material will be arrested, like giving a planar reinforcement. And the geogrid, it's the preferred material is a geogrid, as the geotextile is a furthermore flexible material, and so the arresting the confinement or uh, sand may go down and causes the failure. And so the geogrids will ensure the uniform distribution of soil, of the underlying soil. Okay. Uh, it is beneficial in the clay situation, as and it was BCR, the bearing capacity ratio was found 7 times in the case of the unreinforced soil. And when talking about, these are all what experimental results, and we have, with the technology, we have lots of software packages which is used in the geotechnical industry, and we have the limitations of laboratory actually can be met in numerical analysis. Like we cannot make a full model experiment, and almost all the experiments are agreeing to the numerical results also. So we can put the in situ characters to the software, like what we can see different materials, how these different materials react, interact with the this load, and what all type of what range could be expected, what results could be expected when it is applied in the field. Now these are all the works. Mostly it's done in Plaxis, Abacus, FLAC, for the numerical analysis, and these are the optimum values they got, and that's it. And so we come to the conclusion, like geocells are very effective in stabilizing the weak soil, and then geocell is reinforced with additional planar reinforcement. It gives better results due to the membrane effect. Now, the optimum values for various factors when adopted gives a sturdy soil which with a large load carrying capacity and very small settlement. The numerical analysis with application of geocells can be simulated with the help of different software packages, and the results from it have been shown to agree with the experimental results. The numerical analysis also helps in the slope stability analysis, safe placement of anchor plates, and other structures. Though extensive theoretical study is done, practical application is limited. And and these are my references. Thank you. Hello.
Yes, sir. I think. Okay, and thank you, Ms. Anshu,
Thank
for
you.
your nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now uh, I see there are no questions in the chat box, so I'll just invite all the participants if they have any questions. Only couple of questions I will take for her presentation. So if anybody is interested in asking any questions, please do so now. Okay, so I guess none of the participants have any question for our first presenter. So I'll take this opportunity to thank you, Ms. Anshuraj, for a nice
Thank you, sir.
presentation. You have explained your work in very good manner, very brief, in a very briefly. Okay, and that's a very good presentation on your part. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
okay. So and that concludes the session for our first speaker. So as I've already said, a very good afternoon to all the participants. So now I would like to invite Mr. Pankaj Sharma. Mr. Pankaj Sharma, are you presently here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good
Okay.
afternoon, sir. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pankaj Sharma. So the second speaker for this session is Mr. Pankaj Sharma, who will be presenting his paper entitled Evaluating Factors Affecting Red Mud Interfacial Strength Using Binder Cement, Kill Dust, and Polypropylene Fibers. Okay. The other co-authors of this research manuscript is Dr. Saurabh Rawat and Professor Ashok Kumar Gupta. Okay, so with this brief introduction of and the paper ID is 42 for this particular presentation. Okay, so with this brief introduction, now I will invite Mr. Pankaj Sharma to please make the presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Pankaj, you can start your presentation, share your slides, and you can start your presentations.
Okay, sir. Sir, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Mr. Pankaj, I think we are able to view your screen.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Very good afternoon to all present here. I am Pankaj Sharma, Research Scholar, Department of Civil Engineering, Department of JUIT. The title of my paper is the Evaluating Factor Affecting the Red Mud Interfacial Strength Using Binder, Cement, Kiln and Dust, and Polypropylene Fiber. So here's the outline, which contain introduction, proposed material, objectives of the study, and experimental program, result and discussion, conclusion, and the reference. From the introduction, as we all know, the disposal of different industrial waste is a critical problem in the world. Industrial waste generate different environmental problem for the disposal area, like land degradation, poor air quality, air pollution. Also, climate change is there. There are different industrial waste like fly ash, cement kiln dust, red mud, and the mining ash, etc. The consumption of industrial waste in engineering field and the road construction has been great interest throughout the globe. Scarcity of previously established construction material, reducing environmental impact renders industrial waste as a substitute. Thus, in the present study, we are converting the waste into resource. We also know that mechanically stabilized earths can widely use the various geotechnical applications such as construction of embankment, pavement, and the bridges abandonment in the soft ground. So we use different reinforcing fiber and sheet and reinforcement material like soil veiling, etc. In present study, we are using the three different type of material in which red mud and cement kiln dust are the two industrial waste of alumina and cement industry. The cement kiln dust has a pozzolanic property which contain the calcium oxide, which is the base of cement industry, as a unburned or overburned dust of cement. Similarly, red mud is the incombustible base of alumina industry, and the polypropylene fiber is the product of textile industry, which is used in textile industry or also in a construction industry for increasing the tensile strength of soil and the concrete. Here is the grain size analysis for two different industrial waste. That is, first is our CKD or cement kiln dust, or second is our red mud. From the curve, it seems like a poorly graded sand. This is not actually sand, but it seems like a sand, and having CuCC value lies in the range of poorly graded sand. The accept ratio of fiber is 600, having length of fiber 12 mm, where diameter of polypropylene fiber is equal to 0.02 mm, having high melting point. The objective of study is to obtain optimum mix by using light compaction test. Similarly, to obtain the California bearing ratio capacity of different mix, and to attain the to obtain the shear strength parameter of optimum mix. Here is the experimental program. From the table, it is clear that the different tests are carried out to the red mud cement kiln dust from cement kiln dust percentage from 0 to 30% at an increment of 5% along with along with the polypropylene fiber 0 to 1%. From here, it is clear that we are first using pure red mud, then we use red mud along with cement dust, and then we use the red mud and cement dust with the change in the fiber percentage. From the resultant, first is the resultant discussion for the compaction test. From the curve, it seems like the dry density with increase in the water content start decreasing, and then it start increasing and attain its peak, which shows the bulking nature of the material. It seems like a sandy material which show bulking material. That means the density decreases up to some time, then attain its the peak. Then from the first graph, it is clear that the composition 80% of red mud and 20% of cement kiln dust shows the highest maximum density in the all different mix. Then when we add the fiber to this percentage, then we see that it is clear that 79.5% red mud and 20% cement kiln dust with 0.5% of fiber shows maximum density. Further, we increase the percentage of fiber up to 1%, then it is clear from the figure number 3 that our density start decreasing from 17 to 16. Then from the fourth curve, it is clear that the maximum dry density of the mix start increasing with in addition of cement kiln dust up to 20%. Then after 20%, the maximum dry density become constant. So we make the fixed percentage of cement kiln dust equal to 20%. Here's the interpretation which I already explained, that the maximum dry density and optimum moisture content was recorded 16 kilonewton per meter cube or 1.6 gram per cc for the 28% of optimum moisture content for the red mud and the cement kiln dust. The maximum dry density of red mud. Sorry. Hello, sir.
Yeah, two more minutes, please.
Okay.
You should wrap up within 2 minutes.
Okay. The maximum dry density for the for the red mud without adding cement kiln dust is 14 kilonewton per meter cube and 23% of optimum moisture content. Now for the optimum mix, the maximum dry density was recorded 17.3 kilonewton per kilonewton per meter. Now further, with addition of 1% of fiber, the density decreases up to 16 kilonewton per meter cube, that I already explained. With addition of 0.5% fiber, the density increase up to 14.55% to the existing mix. Now the CVR, we have conducted a CVR test for the mix. The CVR value also increased significantly for the optimum mix, as clear from the figure. That is, for the pure red mud, the CVR value was recorded 16%, while for the optimum mix it is increased up to 20%. From the we have conducted a CD test, CD Excel sheet test for the optimum mix and pure red mud, and it is clear from the table that for the pure red mud, the cohesion value was recorded 12.5 and the phi value was 24.22. For the mix with 0.5% fiber, C value increases up to 45 and phi value increases up to 3. With further addition of fiber up to 1%, the C value and phi value also start decreasing as clear from the table value. Also, we have conducted the EDX test for the different mix, different waste
Mr.
product
Pankaj,
from the.
Mr. Pankaj, your time is almost up.
Yes, sir.
Please go to your conclusions
Yes, sir.
now.
Last slide. It contains predominant amount of calcium and silica. From the both figure, it is clear that it contains calcium, silica, alumina, which increase the shear strength of the mix. Hence, from the conclusion, the red mud, the maximum dry density and optimum moisture content was recorded 14 kilonewton per meter cube and 23, which is further increased up to 17.3 kilonewton per meter cube at 25% of moisture content. Hence, the 17.5% of red mud and 20% of cement dust with 0.5% fiber is recorded as optimum. Also, the shear strength parameter was found maximum for this mix. The CVR value also increases from 16 to 28% for the optimum mix. Also, the energy dissipate dispersive X-ray analysis shows that cement kiln dust and red mud
Hello, Mr. Pankaj.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pankaj, for a nice and almost brief presentation on the work carried out. Okay, so now I'll open this field for a couple of questions. If any of the participants have any question, I would request them to ask any questions that they might have regarding the presentation made. Okay, Dr. Pankaj, I don't think any of the participants have any questions that they want to ask you regarding this presentation. So thank you, Mr. Pankaj, for your presentation. And now, thank you again, Mr. Pankaj. And now I will be again handing it over back to Mr. Anil, who will be conducting the third presentation of this session.
Thank you, sir. The third presentation for this session is on effective remediation techniques for twin shallow lakes in Panchkula in the state of Haryana. Well, it will be presented by Ms. Prachi Vasist. And
yes, sir.
This paper has been contributed by Prachi and Dr. Rajiv Ganguly. Now, let us look at their presentation and see what they have done in this research. Thank you. Prachi, please.
Okay, sir. Sir, is my presentation visible?
Yeah, it is visible. Yes, yes.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to make a presentation of on effective remediation techniques for twin shallow lakes in Panchkula district of Haryana. My name is Prachi Vasistha, and I'm a PhD scholar in JP University of Information Technology in Vaknagar district, Solan, Himachal Pradesh. So layout of the presentation is introduction, objective of the study, the site description, method and application, critical discussion, conclusion, and references. Introduction. We all know that these days water bodies face serious environmental threats due to rapid increase in population and urbanization, which leads to dumping of agricultural, municipal waste, stormwater, grey water, and industrial waste into the lakes. So so we can offer various remediation techniques which can be on-site or off-site to treat such polluted water bodies. Also, these remediation techniques have been divided into physical, chemical, and biological methods. The physical methods include aeration, uprooting of weeds, installing of hydraulic structure, dilution, dredging of sediments to improve the water body characteristics. The chemical treatment include the optimum dosage of chemicals such as polyaluminum chloride, the use of lime, ferrous salts, and copper sulfate treatment for improvement of the lake water bodies. The biological and ecological methods include construction of wetlands, floating beds, biomembranes, etc., and plant-based water purification system, which can be installed on small and large scale for improvement in the overall quality of water bodies. These above techniques can be used on single basis or in combination with each other for the treatment of heavily polluted waters. So the remediation techniques are important for overall pollution reduction and framing of appropriate regulatory policies. The objective of the study is the determination of best possible cost-effective remediation techniques for urban shallow lakes in Panchkula district of Haryana. So the study here involves the review of widely available global literature to determine the best technologies available based on advantages and disadvantages, parameters, and the possibility of application. These are the two lakes which have been studied. These are the emerging tourist attraction which are located in Morni Hills Tehsil of district Panchkula in Haryana, and is a weekend getaway for people of Chandigarh and around the place, and it offers large number of recreational activities. The first figure is of Lake 1, which is Bhimtal, and which offers which is a tourist place and offers recreational activities by Haryana Tourism. The Lake 2 in figure 1B is Draupadi Tal, which is often undertaken for pisciculture by the government of Haryana. These are the methods and application. The remediation techniques have been divided into three parts: physical, chemical, and ecological or biological. The physical methods include aeration, sediment dredging, hydro raking, vegetative buffer and riparian zone stabilization, ripraps, whereas chemical method include optimum dosage of chemicals in the lake water body, such as alum, phoslock, modified zeolites, ferrous iron salts, copper sulfate, and calcium-based compounds. The third method is biological or ecological method, which involves use of aquatic animals, plants, aquamats, floating beds, construction of wetlands, or optimum dosage of microorganism directly, called as microbial dosing, or in form of thin films, called as biofilm reactors. So these are the various methods that have been discussed and utilized for seeing the conditions for suitability of our study site. So first is the aeration, which was found to be suitable for our sites, the reason being the BOD, COD, and DO. The DO levels in the hypolimnion, that is the base of the lake, was found to be lesser, which certainly makes it a suitable condition for a suitable technique for remediation in our study site. It offers long-term benefit and also offers reduction in nutrient concentration. The second technique is riprap, which is used for stabilization of banks and preventing of erosion, but it increases the water temperature by reflection of sunlight into the water, thus harming the aquatic plants and wildlife, so it was not applicable at the site. The third is chemical phoslock, which was not applicable due to toxicity reasons. The fourth is calcium-based compounds. Since the pH of the water increases and our pH was found to be between 6 and 8 towards the alkaline side, so the products were not feasible for the site. The modified zeolites were not applicable to the site due to being costly. The next is aquatic animals. Since the lakes are being used for the pisciculture, so the use of targeted animals and fish such as carps can be done for controlling of excessive phytoplankton and improving water quality. The next is aquamats, which requires constant maintenance and was not applicable to the site. The next is construction wetlands. It requires large area, and since our lakes are shallow and small in the area, so it was not applicable. The next is microorganisms, which is direct application. So due to limited remediation, which is achieved and inefficient for many parameters, this remediation technique was not applicable to the site. The next is biofilm reactor, which requires extensive construction work, and therefore it was not applicable to the site. The three applicable techniques of remediation that were decided was, first is sediment dredging, which improves the water quality and reduces the internal sediment, internal loading and sediment release. It is applicable for small and shallow lakes, and since our nitrate and TP was less, so a constant removal of sediments from the bottom of the lake through dredging was possible and applicable. The next is vegetative buffer and riparian zone stabilization, which prevents sediment inflow, promotes native vegetation growth, and also provides shading to aquatic animals from high temperature and predators. So low slope, due to low slope stabilization, constant soil erosion from the bank, and high sedimentation rates from the watershed areas and the banks, this technique was suitable for remediation on our site. The last was alum. It provides long-term benefits and has been used for past so many years. It reduces nutrient concentration, and since our site does not hold any large cyanobacterial blooms, it was applicable to our site. The COD level was 40 milligram per liter, which was higher than BOD level and confirms the inorganic content in the water. The flocculation and coagulation capacity of the alum can be utilized for the water of the site to improve the condition and for the remediation of the lake water. The critical discussion, since lakes are urban shallow natural lake and tremendous amount of sedimentation was observed in the
Ms.
lake.
Prachi, I think you are exceeding your time limit, so you might just come to your major conclusions for the presentation.
Okay, sir. So last slide. So the main problem was the sedimentation and a slight increase of nutrient levels. So what we concluded was that the physical remediation technique of dredging and vegetative buffer and riparian zone stabilization were the two physical techniques that can be easily applied to the lake for the remediation. The chemicals such as alum can be used for reducing the turbidity, nitrate and phosphorus from the lake sediments, since it works best for the neutral pH, and our pH was between 6 to 8. So the chemical work best for the site. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the nice presentation, Prachi. It has been really wonderful and it is comprehensive as well.
Okay, sir.
I'm sure participants must be having some questions. If there is any question, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Well, I think none of us have any questions.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir, sure.
So, which two lakes you have considered in Panchkula?
Sir, I'm unable to hear your question. So kindly please repeat your question.
Which are those two lakes you have considered for your study?
So these are the twin lakes that are located in the Haryana district of Panchkula, which is Bhimtal Lake, that is the lake 1, which is shown in figure 1A, and the second is the Draupadi Tal Lake or lake 2, which is in vicinity to the lake 1.
So do you think the result that is getting into these lakes during rainy season affects the study of carrying out?
So the sediments are usually more in the rainy season, but due to the anthropogenic activities and the various kind of construction activities in and around the lake, there is a regular inflow of sediments from the watershed areas as well as the slopes of the banks, since the slope of the banks have not been maintained by the government.
Okay, so those sediments are going to affect the study?
Yes, sir. So the sediments are a natural site for bounding of various nutrient concentrations, and therefore these sediments offer a large amount of problems such as algae growth, cyanobacterial blooms, and the problems to aquatic wild animals and plants. Also, sir, the lake depth has been considerably reduced for past few years to a very high amount. So the depth has reduced from 10 meters to almost 5 meters.
Okay, that's huge difference.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think.
Thank you so much, sir.
Does anyone else have any question? Right. Rahul, sir, do we have another presentation?
Yeah. Or Mr. Anil, let us just ask the participants whether we can go for lunch or whether they would like to attend the last presentation that was scheduled for this section. So, participants, since we started a little bit late, somewhere around 12:15, so I leave it up to you. So if you think that we can have one more presentation before concluding for lunch, let us do that. Otherwise, we can come back at 2 and start with the next presentation we'll take the last presentation which was scheduled in this section as the first one for the coming one. So what are the any viewpoints from the participants? If the participants are willing, we can finish the scheduled presentations that we had for during this period.
So we should continue with the presentations.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I also think so.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So as
we can do things. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Anand. So as
with the fourth presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Anil. Thank you for those participants responding back to the question. So as mentioned by some of the participants that they are willing to go with the fourth presentation that was scheduled in this section. So with this, now I would like to invite Mr. Prakhar Joshi to present his paper entitled Coastline Protection Using a Rubble Mound Seawall, a Case Study. The paper ID is 44, and the other co-authors of this paper are Prashant, Pritesh Goel, and Mr. Pradeep Goel. So with this description of the research paper, I would now like to invite Mr. Joshi to please make his presentation.
Thank you so much, sir. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
I think if you make it full screen, it will be.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So our topic, good morning. My name is Prakhar Joshi, and I will be presenting my paper with the co-authors Prashant, Pratesh, and Pradeep Goel Kumar. Coastline Protection Using Rubble Mound Seawall, a Case Study, and I'm from Delhi Technological University. So a brief introduction. Seawalls are freestanding structures related to flood or shoreline prevention. For India, it is a very great importance as India has 7,500 kilometers of coastline, and from 1981 the temperature has gone up to 0.08 degrees Celsius up per decade. And this paper discusses the case of such a beach in Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh, where the erosion is happening. It is a beach whose erosion issue has been raised in the parliament, and the Press Information Bureau and Outlook newspaper press release supports the same. So the site selection, this is the Ramakrishna beach as you can see in the image, and its coordinates are 17.714 degree north, 83.3237 degree east, and we have used the measuring tool, Google measuring tool, to measure the distance, which came out to be 2.90 kilometers as stated in the red circle, and the source is Google Earth. So this is the image of Ramakrishna Beach over the years from 2005 to 2020. The figure 2 is of 2005, and the red line that you can see is taken as the baseline for the next years. In figure 6, you can see the red line. The water has encroached in, and the beach has been lost, whose value comes out to be 20 meters. So there is a gradual erosion that has been happening in the past 15 years. So the reason for this site is that our Minister of State, Science and Technology and Earth Sciences, Sri Y.S. Chaudhary, said that 20 meters of beach was lost in last 2 years while answering in Parliament in 2015, which is a huge amount. The Visakhapatnam Port Trust has been trying to control soil erosion by regularly feeding Ramakrishna Beach with sand found in the outer harbor. The data over the last 25 years show that approximately 25 to 33% of the Andhra Pradesh shoreline is experiencing erosion of various sizes. So now we'll come to our seawall design. These are some prerequisites. The KD, that is the stability constant, it is defined as a cube of stability number derived from the Van der Mee formula, and it is taken as 2. And rough angular quarry stone is taken as for the armor unit. The K delta is taken as 1, which is the layer coefficient. So these are the mean wave period and significant wave height. So the mean wave period is from 7 to 9, as from the left image you can see, and the significant wave height comes out to be 1.516 from the image in the right. This is the tidal chart. So the design conditions, the time period I have already explained. The specific gravity of armor is 2643 kg per meter cube, as shown in the calculation. Specific gravity of seawater is 1025 kg per meter cube. The slope is 1:1.5 that we have taken. Cot theta comes out to be 1.5. Significant wave height is 1.516. Wave height is 2.516, and depth of water is 2.516. These are the 5 layers that will be 5 elements of the seawall that we will be designing: armor, underlayer, core, toe bum, and filter layer. So coming on to the armor, the first element, the weight of the armor unit is decided through this formula. This is SR into H cube upon PD, SR by SW minus 1 whole cube into cot theta, where SR is the specific gravity of armor, H is height of wave, CD is stability constant taken from table 1, as I have explained earlier, SW specific gravity of seawater, and cot theta. The weight of the armor comes out to be 3570.40 kg. The crest width of the armor is taken as N into K delta into WAR SR whole to the power 1 by 3. Here K delta is layer coefficient, as I have already explained. So the crest width of the armor layer comes out to be 3.316 meters, and the thickness is calculated using formula N K delta WAR SR whole to the power 1 by 3. Here N, that is number of stones or number of stone layers, is taken as 2, and the thickness comes out to be 2.21 meters. So the underlayer design, underlayer is designed as 1 by 10 to 1 by 15 times the weight of the armor unit, considering the stability of the RC wall. So weight of the underlayer comes out to be 357.04 to 238.02 kg, and the thickness of underlayer is equal to the thickness of armor, which I have already known, and it is 2.21 meters. So the third element is the core design. We have designed our core to 1 by 100 to 1 by 400 times the weight of the armor unit. And for the stability measures, the weight of the core is 35.704 kg to 8.926 kg. The toe bum design is weight of the toe bum is 1 by 10 to 1 by 15 times the weight of the armor, and it comes out to be 357.04 kg to 238.02 kg. Width of the toe bum is 2 times the significant wave height, which comes out to be 3.032 meters, and the depth of the toe bum is 0.4 times the depth of the water, and it is 1.064 meters. The depth of the core layer is 1.064 meters. Filter layer design, the final fifth and the final element is its weight is 1 by 1000 times to 1 by 6000 times the weight of the armor unit, and the weight of the filter layer is 3.5704 to 0.5905 kg. The structure, the cumulative height of the structure comes out to be 6.484 meters, as you can see in the above calculations that we have done. So this is the table that we have constituted. The area is these calculations were then put into the AutoCAD software, and we have designed our seawall. The area was calculated according to that AutoCAD drawing, and then it was multiplied with the length and the unit weight to get the total weight of the material. So for all the 5 layers, there was a total weight which is on the rightmost column, and the total weight of the structure came out to be 3,43,578.3 tons. So this is our AutoCAD drawing for the rubble mount seawall. So the conclusions that come, as we know, Visakhapatnam Ramakrishna Beach is near Vishakhapatnam port, so it is densely populated, and due to its close proximity to Vishakhapatnam port, it is of much economic importance. The road that was seen in the earlier image was also a strategic road which connects the Vishakhapatnam port to the interiors of Vishakhapatnam. So this seawall will also protect it. The seawall's weight and height are 3,43,578.3 tons and 6.484 meters. This design is made using standard procedure of engineering manual. If the proposed seawall is constructed, this is very important. If the proposed seawall is constructed along the Ramakrishna Beach, we can prevent the erosion of coastline by 10 meters approximately annually. The seawall is also eco-friendly as there is no use of factory materials. The seawall is also eco-friendly as there is no use of factory materials and will help in conservation of marine life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi, for such a nice and wonderful presentation on the work that you are doing. Okay, so now I would like the participants, if they have any questions regarding the presentation made. Any questions from the participants? So, Mr. Joshi, I have a couple of questions regarding this material, this work that you are carrying out. So,
Yes,
my first question is, like, I think you have mentioned that you're using both a cloth bag as well as a gunny bag for doing this as a alternative reinforced material. So, out of these two, which of the material do you find is better?
Sir, we haven't said anything about the material in our presentation. I think you must be confused with some other thing.
No, but you said. Oh, sorry. That's okay. So yeah. So what other coastline protection methods that can be implemented?
So the other coastline protection methods are if we can put in vertical seawall or a curved seawall. So vertical seawall will be it will be easier to make, but it will not be eco-friendly, and it will also do not get any reinforcement from back because there is a beach. There will be hollow thing between the road and the seawall if we put it. So we are trying to protect it. The curved seawall will not work here because we do not want to reflect back the water. We want to prevent erosion. It will reflect back the waters. And the curved seawall has its drawback that erosion happens in the curved seawall in the lower part because water impacts on it. Whereas the rubble mount seawall that we are using is eco-friendly, firstly, because it will not be using any factory material. It will all be stone, so the marine life and the biodiversity will be conserved, you can say. And secondly, there will be a back stability, I'll say, stability that the wall will not fall.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Joshi. So does any of the other participants have any questions?
I have a simple question.
Yes, sir.
How is it different from the wall that we see in Bombay? There are precast prongs put there.
Yes, sir. I'll tell you, sir. I think you are talking about the Marine Drive.
Exactly, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, the Marine Drive, there are concrete tetrapods. So the Marine Drive, it is to protect that, to dissipate the energy of the sea wave. Whereas here we need to prevent erosion. In tetrapods, there is a working that ripples will be formed inside the tetrapod, and they will reduce the amount of energy that impacts onto the wall of the road. It's along the road. Whereas in our case, there is a beach in between the wall and the sea. And that beach is eroding 10 meters every year. So the tetrapods cannot be placed without any wall present there. Secondly, even if I agree that tetrapods to be placed, concrete tetrapods to be placed, so even then we need to provide some kind of a wall, which I've already explained to this sir, that why is rubble mount wall very important.
Yeah, we need to have some floor wall in between.
Yes, sir.
So for that, instead of borders, can we use the thing?
Sir, that we can use in armor unit. Above armor unit, we can place tetrapods so that it will dissipate the energy to some extent. It will not dissipate 100%, but to some extent, we can dissipate the energy.
So do you think borders are more efficient in dissipating energy and thereby preventing erosion?
Sorry, sir.
So do you think borders are more efficient than those precast units?
Sir, here we have taken environmental impact.
Okay.
Because the concrete will have some chemicals that will be affecting the marine life.
Okay.
We have taken it all natural. We want our other important aim is to protect and conserve the environment and the marine life.
Even then, when you have to bring borders from some natural site, and for concrete, you can use the construction waste. Suppose some RTC building is demolished, so we can get a large amount of waste from there. So can we use that instead of borders?
Sir, if you are asking theoretically, yes, we can use, but our aim is to protect environment and use zero factory materials like cement, these all things. But yes, theoretically we can use.
No, so will we not be using waste material in these production walls? Is that a good idea? Not a good idea.
Sir, I'll say according to cost, yes, it is a good idea, but keeping marine life in mind, I believe we shouldn't use it.
Okay. So do you think the concrete releases some kind of toxic materials into water? It may do that.
No, sir. Sir, we need to understand something else here. How marine life is important. Without concrete, concrete has a plain surface. Whereas in boulders, there are gaps in between. In that gaps, coral can grow. Whereas in concrete, there is no coral that can stick into it.
Okay.
So
Right.
that is why
Okay.
we
Thank
use.
you. Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi, for such a nice presentation, and your answered all the questions that have been asked by both the coaches and other participants very well.
Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
so it was a nice and it was a different kind of work that we have been seeing from what has been done. So very good and well presented.
Thank you, sir.
So participants, I think with this lecture, I think we would now all of us would like to take a little break, and please come back by 2 o'clock and we can start with the other presentations present in this session. Okay, so now let us discuss for lunch break. Okay.
So we have the same link for 2 o'clock. Same meeting link, no?
Yeah, you all the participants in this virtual session, please come back and join in this link only. Okay, and the remaining presentations will start from 2 o'clock. Okay, so thank you, participants, all the participants who have been present, who have presented, and who are going to present. So let's take a small break and let us reassemble back at 2 o'clock. Thank you, participants.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.